I work 3 jobs. Not because I love the hustle culture or dream of early retirement sipping cheap beer on some Florida coast, but because I married Margaret. And Margaret, well, Margaret liked comfort. She liked weekend spa trips, new throw pillows every season, wine that didn't come in a box, and vacations with enough hashtags to make an influencer blush. So I got to work. First shift starts at 6 a.m. unloading pallets at a warehouse that smells like wet cardboard and regret. Then comes the Uber shift, picking up tech bros, hungover bachelorettes, and middle-aged consultants who treat the back seat like their therapy lounge. Nighttime. That's for stocking shelves at a discount pharmacy, surrounded by expired toothpaste and fluorescent lights that make you question every life choice. I did all of it for her. Never complained. Not once. Not even when my feet started to feel like blocks of concrete and the circles under my eyes turned permanent. Margaret? She used to joke that I was like a machine, steady, dependable, and always running. I thought she meant it as a compliment. Dumb of me, really. About 6 months ago, she joined a gym. At first, I was proud. She used to loathe exercise, said treadmills were medieval punishment devices dressed in lycra. But suddenly, she was going 5 times a week. Then 6. Sometimes 7. She'd come home glowing, energized, talking about new instructors and something called hot Pilates. Sounded miserable, but hey, if it made her happy, I wasn't going to judge. She'd started drinking protein shakes and bought yoga pants that cost more than my entire weekly grocery run. I figured maybe she just wanted to feel better. I even worked overtime to get her that fancy gym bag she'd been eyeing. Personalized embroidery, gold zipper. She barely acknowledged it. She started showering at the gym, said it saved time. I raised an eyebrow, once. Just once. She rolled her eyes and said I was paranoid. Fair. I didn't push. I'd come home to find her already in bed, scrolling on her phone, that smug little half-smile like she was laughing at something private. I told myself it was Instagram. Memes. TikTok nonsense. But something in my gut whispered otherwise. And let me tell you, when a man's gut talks like that, it ain't indigestion. It's instinct. Then there was the day I came home early, snowstorm knocked out my ride schedule. I walked in, house was spotless. Like, suspiciously spotless. Air smelled like lavender and bleach. Margaret wasn't home. Her gym bag was gone. So were her heels. The red ones she never wore for me. I checked her phone charger, missing. Looked through the hamper. Nothing. Not a single sweaty gym towel. Just a whiff of cologne I didn't recognize lingering in the hallway. It wasn't mine. I don't wear anything that smells like entitlement and citrus. Still, I waited. Kept my mouth shut. When she got home, hair damp, face flushed, she kissed me like I was furniture. I asked how her workout was. She said, intense, and grinned to herself. I said nothing. Smiled like a fool. Even did the dishes. That night, I lay in bed listening to her breathe, wondering if the rhythm was different. If she'd practiced it with someone else. Told myself I was being insane. Maybe I was. But then she started forgetting small things. Where she put her necklace. The name of my coworker she'd met twice. My mother's birthday. Margaret never forgot birthdays. The day started normal enough. I reminded Margaret that it was my mom's birthday and we were expected at her place by noon. She blinked at me like it caught her off guard, like the date had somehow slipped through the cracks in her busy gym calendar. Still, she nodded, adjusted her tone, and said she'd be ready in 20 minutes. I didn't press her on the surprise. She'd forgotten my mom's birthday last year too, but back then, she had the flu and a halfway decent excuse. This time, she was just distracted. She wore that new beige dress I hadn't seen before and didn't ask if I liked it. She used to do that, ask me if it suited her, spin once like we were still dating. This time, she put on a small gold necklace and sprayed some perfume I didn't recognize. We drove in silence most of the way, the kind of silence that hums instead of breathes, broken only when she glanced at her phone every few minutes and tapped out messages like she was defusing a bomb. I stared at the road, but my mind was in the passenger seat, watching her every move. When we got to Mom's house, Margaret flipped the switch. Her smile was warm, her hug genuine enough to fool even the sharpest old eyes. She handed over a pink-wrapped box with some fancy candle inside, bought this morning, I'd bet, and complimented my mom's hair. We all sat at the long dining table, me, Margaret, my mom, her neighbor Shirley who always came to these things, and my cousin Denny, the one still living in his mom's garage pretending to be an online consultant. Margaret fit in, as usual. She asked about Shirley's cats, complimented Denny's haircut like it wasn't the same one he's had since 2010, and laughed at the appropriate moments. I sipped coffee, chewed on a biscuit, and watched her like a man watching his house just before a storm hits. The conversation rolled on. Shirley asked Margaret how the gym was going. Margaret's face lit up, of course it did. She launched into a story about a new instructor named Cal who pushed everyone hard but was so motivating, her words not mine. Mom asked when we were thinking about kids. I gave the same answer I always gave, when we're ready, which translated roughly to never if things kept heading where they were heading. Margaret just smiled and said, we're enjoying the time we have now. No follow-up. She had an answer preloaded. She was playing her role to perfection, and I played mine, the doting husband who held her hand beneath the table. Except I didn't. I kept both hands in view, drinking slowly, waiting. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and the smile vanished so quickly you'd think she'd seen a ghost. She stood up without saying a word, stepped away from the table like someone exiting stage left, and answered the call in the hallway. A few muffled words later, she returned. Her face was serious, apologetic even. She told us that a friend from the gym had a crisis, something about getting locked out of her apartment and needing help urgently. Margaret said she had to go, couldn't be avoided. She was sorry, truly, but it couldn't wait. My mother offered her understanding smile, Shirley gave a knowing nod, and Denny didn't notice at all, too busy scrolling his phone. Margaret grabbed her purse and kissed my cheek, said she'd text me later. I said nothing, just looked at her and nodded slowly. She left in a rush, her heels tapping out an exit. I stayed. Ate another biscuit. Nodded at whatever Shirley was saying about her vet bill. But in my head, I was already calculating. See, that phone call. The one she said was from a friend. I saw the name flash on the screen when it lit up. Briefly. But clearly. After that birthday lunch, things didn't just drift, they declined, like a slow leak in a tire you don't notice until the car starts pulling to one side. Margaret texted less. Calls were shorter. Sometimes she'd forget to respond entirely and when I'd mention it, she'd say she was swamped, or drained from workouts, or needed more me time. I didn't argue. I had my hands full. 3 jobs and night classes don't leave much room for confrontation, and frankly, I was too tired to play detective. By the time I got home most nights, I was lucky if I had the strength to microwave leftovers and review notes before sleep took me under. Margaret, meanwhile, had a new routine. Gym early. Then errands, or some vague event, or she was meeting a friend. Always vague. Always on the move. I'd come home to half-eaten salads in the fridge, her favorite blanket thrown carelessly on the couch, and her gym shoes neatly lined up near the door like a polite goodbye. She didn't mention the gym friends anymore by name, and when I asked who she trained with now, she'd just shrug or say the schedule rotated a lot. Her scent changed too. She used to wear soft, floral fragrances, now it was something bolder, sharper, the kind that lingered long after she'd gone. Once, I came back from a night shift and saw her heading out the door with a small overnight bag. She said she was going to a fitness conference upstate. I asked if it was part of her new plan to become a personal trainer, which she had only mentioned once in passing. She said yes, tossed the answer out like a bone, and kissed my cheek as she left. No follow-up. No brochure. No return photos. When she got back 2 days later, she acted like it never happened. Another time, she came home late in a car I didn't recognize. I watched from the kitchen window as she thanked the driver. It was a dark blue sedan, tinted windows, and a dent in the rear passenger side door. I stepped out to help her with the bags, and casually asked who it was. "Just a friend," she said, waving it off. "No name." I nodded, forced a smile, and moved on. But what struck me was how she hesitated before answering, just for a second, like she was flipping through cards in her head and picked the safest one. Then, there was the night her ride didn't start. She called me, voice sharp with frustration, asking if I could come jump the car. I was already in bed, exhausted, but I got up, threw on a coat, and met her in a dim parking lot by a smoothie bar that had closed an hour earlier. The car she was in wasn't the same blue sedan. This one was a silver compact with out-of-state plates. I didn't ask questions then. I just handed her the jumper cables, connected the terminals, and let the silence stretch until the engine finally growled to life. She thanked me quickly, avoided eye contact, and drove off. No apology. No explanation. No curiosity about how my day went or why I had dark circles under my eyes. Days turned into weeks like that. We started living on opposite sides of a calendar. She filled her hours with new faces, new places, and unexplained absences. I filled mine with invoices, textbooks, and clock-ins. We were married in name, but not in rhythm. Not anymore. The house stayed clean. The bills stayed paid. The refrigerator always had almond milk and fresh berries. But we were two actors performing in different plays, sharing the same stage. One night, I came home earlier than usual. My last class was cancelled, and I figured I'd surprise her. But the house was quiet. Her gym bag was gone. So was her phone charger. I sat in the kitchen, lights off, waiting. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. The front door didn't open. That's when I noticed something odd in the trash. A receipt. Crumpled but readable. It wasn't from any store around here. And it wasn't recent. It was dated 2 days ago, in a city over 200 miles away. For a hotel. 2 guests. 1 room. And one name printed clearly at the top, next to hers. A name I didn't recognize. Yet. Margaret came home just after 6 in the morning, her hair pulled back hastily, hoodie zipped up halfway, eyes shadowed but alert. I was sitting at the kitchen table in the same spot I'd been in since around midnight, staring at the same coffee mug that had long since gone cold. She paused when she saw me, her keys still dangling in one hand, the other tightening around her phone like it held a secret. I didn't say anything right away. I let the silence hang. Let her fill the room with her own discomfort. She set her bag down and gave a sigh that was more annoyance than exhaustion. I finally asked the questions that had been backing up in my throat for weeks, where she keeps disappearing to, who she's really been with, why she's been dodging my calls and walking around this house like I'm some background noise. She didn't flinch. She didn't apologize. She didn't even pretend to explain. She just said she wanted a divorce. Like she was ordering lunch. Said she couldn't live like this anymore, that she didn't love me. I felt like I'd been dropped into water with no surface to swim to. I asked her to explain, asked her to say the words that I already suspected but still wasn't ready to hear. She leaned against the counter, arms folded, and told me flatly that she met someone at the gym. One of the coaches. His name was Dylan. That they'd been seeing each other for a while now, sleeping together regularly. That he made her feel alive. He listened. He noticed things. He touched her in ways I didn't. Said I was always too tired, too focused on work, too preoccupied to see what she needed. That every time I picked up another shift, she felt more alone, more forgotten. That when I came home and collapsed into the couch or the bed or my laptop, she stopped trying to get my attention. I wanted to argue, to tell her I was working to build something for us, for our future. But she wasn't interested in futures anymore. She was living in the present with Dylan. They had plans. Maybe not serious ones yet, but enough to make her feel like she had something to look forward to. She said she'd already contacted a lawyer. That she didn't want to fight, just split everything clean and move on. I heard every word but barely absorbed any of them. My mind was jumping between memories, our wedding, our first apartment, the night we ate cheap pizza on the floor because we couldn't afford a table yet, her laugh when I messed up the vows, the way she clung to me when her father passed away. All of it felt like evidence from a case I hadn't realized I was losing. I asked her if she felt guilty, if she regretted anything. She shook her head and said no. She felt relieved. Said she hadn't been happy in a long time and didn't want to pretend anymore. I asked her if she ever planned to tell me if I hadn't confronted her. She didn't answer. She just looked away and reached for her phone. And that's when I saw it again, the name on the screen. Dylan. A message lighting up with a little heart beside it. She read it, smiled faintly, and turned to walk upstairs. Said she needed to shower. I didn't move. Just sat there in the quiet kitchen, the morning light leaking through the blinds, wondering how long she'd been gone even while standing right in front of me. But what she didn't know, what she didn't ask, was what I found the night before. What I already knew about Dylan. What I was planning to do next. She thought this was going to be a clean break. She thought she'd whisper the word, divorce, drop her little confession like it was a final receipt, and then just walk out of the house with half of everything I built. She thought I'd roll over like I always did, keep working 3 jobs, keep paying the bills, keep pretending that loyalty didn't matter. But no. Not this time. She came out of the shower with a towel around her head and steam still clinging to her like perfume, humming like she hadn't just set a bomb off in my life, and I snapped. Told her flat out, she's not getting anything. Not the house. Not the car. Not a cent of what I broke my back to earn. All these years she stayed home, worked out, shopped online, and sipped organic teas while I missed birthdays and skipped sleep so we could have a roof and food and something resembling a future. She laughed at first, thought I was bluffing. But I wasn't. I took the day off work, my first in months, and went straight to an attorney's office. Clean little building on the edge of downtown, wood-paneled walls, and the kind of receptionist who says your name like she already knows your whole story. I laid it all out, how I'd been the sole provider, how everything was in my name, how she hadn't worked in years and never contributed to the mortgage or utilities. The lawyer, an older guy with thick glasses and a voice like gravel, asked if I had documentation. I did. I kept everything, bank statements, pay stubs, grocery receipts, utility bills, insurance policies. Years of them. He nodded slowly, flipped through a few pages, and said, if this goes to court and she has no proof of contribution, no documented financial role, then yes, there's a very real chance I'd walk away with everything. Every single asset. But only if I moved fast, filed first, and didn't do anything reckless. I left that office with more than just legal advice, I left with direction. A plan. I wasn't going to be the man people whispered about in sympathy. I wasn't going to be the cautionary tale in some gym locker room story about a husband too blind to see it coming. A few days later, Dylan showed up. Pulled into my driveway like he lived here, got out of his car wearing some designer hoodie and fake calm confidence. His jaw clenched tighter than his handshake. Said he wanted to talk. I told him I wasn't in the mood. He said I better stop what I was doing, that Margaret didn't need the stress, and that dragging this through court would only make things worse for everyone. I asked him if that was a threat. He didn't answer directly. Just smiled with that practiced calm people use when they're trying to act like they're not afraid. Said I should be smart, think about what I was risking. Said things could get ugly. Then he stepped a little too close. Too casual. Like he forgot whose house he was standing in. Like he thought I was going to back down just because he had a gym membership and a few new muscles to flash. But what Dylan didn't know, what Margaret didn't know, was that I wasn't bluffing. I had already started moving assets. Already pulled records. Already had the paperwork in motion. And I had something else too. Something they didn't expect. Something that would make them both wish they'd left quietly. After Dylan's little driveway performance, I knew I had to be 5 steps ahead at all times. He played it like a warning, like I was just some tired husband on the ropes and he was stepping in to end it clean. But that smug look in his eyes only sharpened my focus. I wasn't sleeping much by then, barely eating, but I wasn't breaking either. And then one morning, I got lucky. Real lucky. Margaret had left her laptop open in the living room, something she never did. Normally, that thing was glued to her lap or zipped up in her gym bag, password protected like it held state secrets. But that day, maybe she was rushed, maybe she slipped up. Either way, I walked past it and the screen was lit. I don't know what made me pause. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was just timing. But I looked, and there it was, her message thread with Dylan. Clear as daylight. And there, like a sledgehammer to the chest, I saw the message. She told him she was pregnant. Not just that, she said they'd need to spin it right, make it look like it was mine. Said if they played it carefully, they could argue I was the father during court, maybe secure some financial leverage, maybe even full support. Her exact words. We'll press this like it's Lex's. He'll fold under pressure. He always does. I just stared at the screen. My heart wasn't beating fast. It was slow. Cold. Focused. The way a man feels when a switch flips inside him and he knows there's no going back. I screenshotted everything, sent it to myself, backed it up to a flash drive, even printed hard copies. I wasn't going to lose. The court process dragged on. Margaret, through her lawyer, tried every angle. Claimed she'd given up a career for our marriage. Claimed emotional hardship. Claimed she was the more stable party for potential custody of future children. They leaned hard into the pregnancy. Submitted medical confirmations. Tried to establish a timeline. But I'd already preempted it all. My lawyer presented records, timelines, receipts. My work history. Her spending. The total absence of financial contribution on her part. And then we dropped the messages. The judge's face didn't change much, but the tone of the room shifted. Margaret went pale. Dylan didn't show up to that hearing. Probably on purpose. Smart move, for once. It took months. Exhausting, draining months. I kept working through it, shift after shift, dragging my body to court and back to work like a man running a marathon in combat boots. But in the end, I won. The house stayed mine. So did the car. Every asset. Every account. She walked out of that courthouse with nothing but her purse and whatever was in it. No apology. No parting words. Just a look. Sickly, tight-jawed, defeated. But what she didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that I'd already set something else in motion. Margaret wasn't pregnant with Dylan's child. She was pregnant, that part was true. But not because they forgot protection. No. A few weeks before she dropped the divorce bomb, I started to notice her birth control pack sitting on the bathroom counter. Same spot every day. And one night, when she passed out early on the couch after one too many gym smoothies, I switched 2 of the pills. Later, I did it again. I wasn't proud of it, but I was precise. And now she was carrying a child she thought was someone else's weapon. A child she was using to try and take me down. But she didn't realize that the real father was the man she thought she'd already destroyed. I hadn't decided yet what I was going to do with that information. Not fully. But I knew one thing for certain, this game wasn't over. Not by a long shot. It was a quiet afternoon when I got the news. No warning, no heads up, just a phone call from someone I didn't recognize, a woman with a soft voice who asked if I was Lex and then paused like she was choosing her words carefully. She said she was calling from the hospital. Said Margaret had been admitted a few days earlier with complications. Said the baby didn't make it. Stillborn. Just like that. No build-up. No emotion in her voice. Just a fact, handed to me like a folded receipt. I didn't say anything. I just stood there in the middle of the kitchen, one hand still on the fridge door, staring at the stack of mail I hadn't bothered opening in a week. I didn't ask which hospital. I didn't ask if Margaret was okay. I just hung up and sat down. And for a long time, I didn't move. The next day, Dylan showed up again. No warning this time. Just his car screeching up to my driveway like he was trying to tear the pavement in half. He didn't knock. He pounded. And when I opened the door, he didn't speak, he lunged. Tried to grab me by the collar, shouting that it was my fault, that I did something, that Margaret was fine until I broke her. His voice cracked somewhere in the middle, but I didn't care. I fought back. I shoved him hard into the railing, watched him stumble, then grabbed him by the front of his shirt and told him to get off my property before I made a real problem out of it. He spit something at me about karma, about what was coming, but he didn't come back after that. The street stayed quiet for days. No more gym cars, no more drama. Just me, the house, and a silence I hadn't felt in years. Then came the call that really made it final. Margaret had taken her own life. That's how the woman on the line said it. No emotion again, like reading from a script. I asked where. She told me. A small motel outside town. Nothing fancy. No note. Just her name on the registry and the time she checked in. I didn't go. I didn't ask for her things. I didn't tell anyone. I just kept living. I went back to work, finished the course I'd been dragging through all year, got promoted a few months later. People asked about Margaret sometimes. I told them the usual, separated, went our own ways, she moved out of state. That was enough. Nobody pried. Funny thing is, I kept the same house, same kitchen table, same quiet routines. You'd think the ghosts would pile up, but they don't. Not when you learn how to live with them. And I do. Every day. I carry the secret like a stone in my pocket. Small. Solid. Always there. And I never speak of what I did or what I knew or how it all unraveled. Because when you've been buried alive and dig yourself out, you don't complain about the dirt under your nails. You just breathe. And keep digging.